Welcome to KSok Uncensored. Tonight's guest is Ryan Cook. Now, Ryan is running for Skamania County Sheriff. Skamania County is in Washington State. Welcome, Ryan.
Hey, how's it going?
Going well. I'm so happy to have you on, and I love what you're all about. But I plan on diving deeper into what is driving you to run for Skamania County Sheriff. But first, I want to share with the audience how we met because I think organic interactions are just so rare these days, and this just shows what a great guy you are. Just without anything behind it, right? So I'm in a parking lot. We had just gotten done. We were at the same political event. Didn't speak there at all. Didn't even probably even notice each other. And I'm helping one of my friends who has an electric wheelchair. I'm trying to break it down and put it in his trunk. And those things are freaking heavy. And I had helped him put it together, but breaking it down was even more difficult. So we're out in the parking lot struggling with that. And I look up. I'm like, okay, someone has to help us. And I pointed at Ryan and I was like, can you help us? And he was very kind and came over and was able to break it down and put it in the trunk. And we started talking. And that's how I found out that he's running for sheriff. And so I just think it's cool to be able to meet people, as they say now, out in the wild, not online, and have great interactions and really get to know them that way. Let me just thank you again for doing that, because if you didn't help us, I would have been picking up that 100-pound wheelchair on my own.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Oh
Yeah,
my
that's fun.
gosh. Good stuff. Okay, Ryan, talk to us about why you're running. And something that, we talked a little bit about earlier is you don't have, that was the first thing I asked you. I just assumed you have this law enforcement background, and you are a little bit unorthodox as far as someone running for sheriff is concerned. So talk to us about really what drove you to run.
Most definitely. Yeah. Yeah. For me, it was just a fire on me that we have to start moving and having action in our country. And some of the worst crimes that have ever been committed were done in broad daylight. And it's because everybody thought that somebody else was going to do something. And that's the biggest problem in our country right now, is that people aren't getting up and doing. And what I see for the office of sheriff is where we are in our country right now, especially in states like Washington. We have a liberal governor, and we're pretty much beat back in our state and in our federal. And so when you look to county, you have checks and balances in all these governments, and your sheriff is your last checkpoint of the protection of your rights. And that's the only reason why we have government, was so that we can have our rights protected. So yeah, it's a very important position, and it's an administrative position. And so for me, my job would be to put the right people in place to do the best jobs that they could, and then to also look out to the horizon and see the big issues coming, the things that could harm the people of this county. So it's
Exactly.
yeah, it's a very important position, and I
It
just
really
thought,
is. And a lot of people don't realize, the sheriff is, as far as law enforcement is concerned, the sheriff is really the only position that is actually voted in by those they will serve. Unlike a police chief or a police commissioner, those are appointed positions by within. I mean, we can just look at Portland, Oregon, and the police commissioner is the actual mayor of Portland, Oregon. So, and then they appoint typically the police chief. So the people actually get to choose the sheriff. And I think that is an incredibly important role, and does so much for the area. So I love that you are putting yourself out there and running. Let's talk about, so you have two people that you are running against, correct?
yes, yeah, yeah, I've
And
got
so
two opponents, and yeah, it seems to be a pretty tight race. It's getting real. One of the things I see is a lot of people want change, and I'm different. They see change there. Um, the big one that I'm seeing is that we need to have the difference is that it's not about career. Our government positions were never meant to be about career. They were meant to be that we do it because we want to protect our rights. We want to protect our freedoms. And if we end up losing that, then what do we have? When we go to just doing something for ourselves, that's what we've been seeing in all our government positions, is that
Right.
people are literally just going and serving themselves. It's all about title, and these government positions are not about title. They're about protecting our freedoms. And for me, that's the only reason why I'm doing it. It's about character. That the act of standing up against something coming against the people of your county or country, that act is a selfless act. You stand
Right.
up for what's right, and then you have to fight the consequences of that. And so it's a selfless act to do, and seems like people don't have that character anymore. They're just letting anything happen to our country.
Right, right. No, you're spot on. And as you likely know, I've been attending, for the Clark County Sheriff's race. It's a tight race there as well. And I've been attending a few of their forums and a debate. And there are clear divisions between which individuals are really in it to protect the people and the U.S. Constitution, and then those that are maybe just more of the same, right? And so it's really interesting to watch that unfold, and yeah, and it's pretty amazing. And I think that, again, like I said earlier, for someone running who doesn't have that law enforcement background, but you're running for the people, to protect the people, it is incredibly selfless. Have you faced any, with the opposition that you have? Have you faced any naysayers or any negativity for not having a law enforcement background yet running for sheriff?
Yeah, I've felt it from some areas. Everybody's going to critique you,
Right.
Everybody's going to find that whatever you do in life, and yeah, I was talking to a guy who he has about 40 years of law enforcement experience, and he was like, "So what makes you think that you can do this job, without any law enforcement experience?" And I was like, "Well, it's an administrative position. If you can run a business, you can administrate, and I've owned businesses." And he said, "Well, you're absolutely right." He's like, "I agree 100%. He's like, "What is law enforcement school? It's 5 months of schooling. And yes, you have a deputy who's been out there for 20 years or longer. And yeah, they have a lot of experience. They have a lot of knowledge. But for me, the big one is that we're seeing people with 30 plus years of experience, and they're not standing up when they're supposed to." And
Right.
so, yeah,
Exactly. No, I love where your head's at. So that was my next question, actually. I was going to ask what your background was. So you've been a business owner?
yes, yeah, business owner. I ran a body shop. I used to run my uncle's body shop. That's where I learned it all. And then I got my own body shop, bought that out here in Carson, Washington, and ran that for 6 or 7 years. And then I've also done construction. And then for a while, I was doing mixed martial arts fighting. I was doing that full time for a while, and yeah, I got pretty beat up. My ears all messed up and scrunched.
I know. You know what's funny? So my dad, he was a boxer back in the day, but then he transitioned to where he would train MMA. So I know, so I watched it growing up with them, right? So when I saw you, I was like, oh, I knew. I was able to tell, because I know, what do they call it? Cauliflower ear?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, oh, we have a mixed martial artist here. But yeah, so I think that's awesome. I love that stuff too. And that teaches discipline as well.
Yeah.
So no, that's fantastic, Ryan. I think you're absolutely spot on. And I think more people need to be able to think outside the box and realize that, what the real duties are. And And we don't need more of the same. We need bold individuals who are willing to put their neck on the line and make bold decisions. That might not be the popular decision amongst other politicians and other leaders that have, especially special interest groups. But as far as truly protecting the people, I know that where you stand is in line. I know you're a huge 2A supporter. Can you talk to us about why you feel the Second Amendment is so incredibly important?
Oh, just growing up as a fighter, I was raised in Hawaii actually, and there was like a lot of bullying that happens, in school, and you have white skin and you don't belong, that kind of thing. And so being raised like that, I learned, my mom, she saw me get my first fight in second grade, and she was like, well, I'm going to put him to karate because it looks like he's going to stand up for himself. And so for me, self-defense, the bully only fights somebody who he can beat. A bully is a coward, and tyrants, those are cowards, And
Right.
so the Second Amendment, that's what it's there for, is to protect us against a government that has gone tyrannical, And so, yeah, for me, it's there's no reason to ever let go of your guns. That's what happened in Germany, We always look back at history, and history repeats itself. And Germany, they had them register their guns, and then after they registered them, they told them that they couldn't have any more. And that's what they're trying to do here. We're in some trouble right now. Where we're headed right now. There's going to be a definite need for us to be strong. That George Washington said it best. He said that to always be prepared for war is the best route to have peace. And that means,
I love that.
Yeah, a strong people will keep freedom. But that's the need right now.
Yeah, it truly is. It truly is. So let's talk a little bit about Skamania County and what that would look like for you as sheriff, what the layout is, how many people live there. Just share with viewers a little bit more about Skamania County.
Skamania County, it's a pretty big county. There's not that many people in it. Actually, a lot less than like Clark County. We only have around 12,000 people in the county. It jumps up quite a bit in the summertime. Everybody's out here,
Yeah.
But yeah, it gets really busy. All the hiking and all that goes on out here. It's it's a beautiful county. One thing I noticed was our current sheriff, Dave Brown. He's an excellent sheriff. He's been a sheriff here for 20 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he's been always known for being a constitutional sheriff. And he's retiring now. I wouldn't think of running if he wasn't retiring. But all the people that I know in Portland and Clark County who like their guns, who like their rights, they are always looking out here at this county and thinking that's where I would go. Like, you guys got a constitutional sheriff, and
Right.
it's it is that important that you have a constitutional sheriff. If you pass a bad law in Germany, when they passed those bad laws, and we ended up, it happened in broad daylight and nobody did anything. And in America, we are set up to where we stand against what is wrong. It doesn't do well in this country. You come against freedom, and we will stand against it. And so, yeah, this county is a beautiful thing. There's a lot of good people out here, and what I really see coming for this county and for a lot of the other counties is that people are waking up. We're going to see quite the wave coming up here in these elections, and the danger of it, what I see, is that they don't want us to win these elections because of the repercussions that were going to come from them. It's our upper government. A lot of these people that are in power right now, they've committed treason to our country, and there are going to be repercussions for that. When we get back as the majority, when we get the right people in the Congress. Joe Kent, he's a good guy for that. And when these things happen, it's going to be, um, they're coming after us before the real change happens, is what I see. Our
Right.
food get affected. Our borders, they just opened them up. That's an act of treason. You know,
Yes.
not protecting our country. The oath that they swore to protect our country against all enemies, foreign and domestic, they aren't doing that. And
Right.
so the other one is there's a DEF problem right now. DEF is a diesel exhaust fluid, and we get that from, so it's Russia, Ukraine, and China, and we're not getting it from them anymore. And so basically the end of this month, they're calling for a shortage. And I was just talking to a log truck driver out here, and he said, you can't find the stuff already. And
wow.
Yeah, and
what's the impact of that?
Well, so the whole West Coast has incentivized for all the fleets to buy new trucks. And so all of our big trucks, your passenger trucks, your F-350 diesels, and then all your big fleet trucks, your highway trucks, all of those require DEF now. They will not run without it. And so we hit a shortage of that. That means that you're not getting food to your grocery store. That means you're not getting fuel to your gas station. And really what I see is that they're trying to shut us down for these elections because they can't afford for us to do what we're going to do here. That is that the people wake up. The people most affected have the loudest voice in voting. And so that's what we're going to see coming right now is a big wake up in our country that we see what needs to happen. And so, yeah, that's what I love about this county is that we have a really, really good, solid people out here, and we will fight back as far as in the voting, and I see that coming for a lot of other counties too. I believe Clark County, where you are, I think this last presidential election, I think you were only 4,000 votes short of being conservative. That's like a really tight margin, really.
And then factor in all the funny business with, mail-in voting. So, yeah, absolutely. Clark County is quite red, just has little pockets.
Yeah. And even those pockets are going to change. The more, you start seeing your gas prices go up and your food, if you can't find that, people are going to start saying, hey, what's going on here? What needs to change,
Right.
The pressure of necessity.
Exactly. No, I think that's great, Ryan. I love where your head's at on all of this. And, I want to talk about, as in the sheriff's role and, have you been able to view there's footage coming out like every day recently, with the shooting in Texas, Uvalde, I believe, if I'm saying that correctly. There's footage coming out. We were just talking about this with John James earlier. And I don't know if you've seen the most recent, but it's just so strange to watch how these officers and sheriffs were acting inside the school. One was even getting hand sanitizer while the shooting was taking place. One's checking his phone. They're all just standing around. I'm just curious, do you have any idea on why we're seeing what we're seeing in this footage?
Honestly, to me, what I see there is fear. They fear the repercussions of doing what's right, because we have all these restrictions on law enforcement. Their hands are tied. You bypass all of that. When you're protecting kids, you bypass it all. The only reason why we have law is to protect. And they weren't doing their job there. That was sickening what I saw there. I mean, the only duty you have right there is to charge in there and take out that guy. And you couldn't stop me from doing that. That is the dream you head towards the danger and you protect what is good. And that's one of the few things we have in this country that is good. That is our children. And we're failing to protect them right now. our schools are out of hand. They're indoctrination centers pretty much these days.
Right.
And yeah, for me that was pretty sickening. Our country is so filled with fear. There's it's really how they're controlling us right now is with fear.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, a really good gauge of that is to look around and see people still wearing masks 2+ years after this pandemic. And you think, and I can't help but, I don't know about you, Ryan, but when I see somebody like wearing a mask still, especially outdoors, the vibe changes. I just get ticked off inside because to me, I see someone wearing a mask and I say, they're ruled by fear. And people that are ruled by fear are just going to fold when the going gets tough. And they're the reason that our freedoms are in jeopardy, along with many other reasons, within the government. But gosh, do you feel the same way when you're seeing that 2+ years after this pandemic?
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. There's a scripture that says that we've not been given a spirit of fear, but of power and love and that of a sound mind. And we have a people that are fearful, and they, there's another, I don't remember who it was that said this, that if you will give up just a little freedom for some temporary safety, you will have neither, and you deserve neither.
Yes. Was it Jefferson? I think it was Jefferson.
I want to say, yeah. And
I love that quote because what does that for me? And I personally know people who literally got, you know what? I'll do that. You know what? To be able to go to a concert. Not even kidding. So you talk about giving up your freedom to have a little freedom to go attend a concert in this case. And it's like, wow, you deserve neither, right? The fact that you can fold that quickly for something so unnecessary.
It's pretty sad. We're at that point where really, if we don't start standing up for our rights, we're going to be losing them. And it takes action. There's one of our founding fathers, I believe it was Benjamin Franklin, I believe, that said it, that he said that if danger were ever to approach us, if destruction were to be our lot, it must come from within. As a nation of free men, we must either live for all time, we must either endure for all time or die by suicide. And that means that we need to have action. It's if we don't do anything, then we will fail and destruction will come. And really, it just takes it. We see a need and we act and we do it. And that's one of the biggest attacks of fear is inactivity.
Right. Right.
The fear of failure is a big one. And for me, failure. Everybody fails. Any successful person has failed many more times than they've succeeded. But
yes.
Regret, the regret of not trying, of not doing something, that's something that you don't want to deal with. Regret is a lot worse than failure.
I completely agree with you. And just on a personal note, I'm leaving a 20-year banking career to dive into broadcasting, and I'm doing some political advising and I don't know what my future holds, but you know what? In the pit of my stomach, I was nauseous thinking about having, this sounds so bad for anyone I work with watching, but I just can't do what I've been doing for the last 20 years anymore because it's just not driving me. And so I'm taking a huge financial risk, right? To just go in a direction that I'm really passionate about. And thank God I have the support of my husband, but I might fail. I don't know. I'm not really the type that failure is kind of not an option for me, but I could. But I'm okay with that, right? It's one of those things this is a risk I have to take. Otherwise I will regret it for years to come. So I completely agree with you. And I'm just going for it, not even like trying to overthink it at this point in time. You just have to go for what feels right, and at the time, within reason.
Yeah. That's a big one, is that, you deal with what's in front of you at that time, and the biggest thing I see is that you will be taken care of, when you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. That's where God protects you and takes care of you. It's when you're in that His will, doing what you're called to do. Like for me, I see a lot of stuff coming down the road here short, and I sure would like to be just off making a bunch of money and buying the thing I see I should be buying. Instead, my time and attention running for this position, and
Right.
that's a hard one there. You'd rather just be working, and so but what I see is that I'll be taking care of the needs that I have.
Yes. Yes,
I'll
you
just
will.
be doing. Yeah.
Yeah. You cut out just a little bit, so I apologize if I cut you off. But no, I think that's fantastic. And I reiterate this all the time. Running for public office is incredibly selfless. And these last, especially these last like 6 months, I've been, quite involved with political campaigns in Oregon for governor, and now Southwest Washington, and you see the sacrifice that these, hopefuls candidates are making. You don't see your family and your friends, and you're not making the money, right? A lot of folks have to quit their jobs and their careers to really, really give it a shot. And so there's just sacrifice all over the place. So I love that you are putting yourself out there like that. And I do completely agree with you. I do feel like you are doing God's work, and you're going to be fine. You'll land on your feet regardless. I actually feel like you have a really good shot, though. I think I told you, my old boss, she moved out to your area. She's in Skamania County. And what's that town that starts with a C? You said it earlier.
Carson.
Yeah, Carson. She moved to Carson, and she had seen, I had posted something about you, and she had seen that. And she goes, "Oh," and again, she just moved out there. She goes, "I hear he's the guy to vote for," and so like just word of mouth like that, and they're big 2A supporters. Like that's huge. So your name is out there. You have a good reputation, and these are folks that are not like overly political. They're just out talking to people in the town, and so you're doing something right just to be getting your name out like that. So hats off to you.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been. It's been pretty awesome. Yesterday I went down to the river to jump in. It was really hot, and I was this lady was standing next to me, and she started talking to me, and then I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm Brian Cook. I'm running for sheriff here." And she's like, "Oh, I didn't recognize you." And she said, "Yeah, I'm already voting for you. You got my vote." And I was just like,
"Oh, I love that."
Yeah, and almost every day I've been meet people that say that to me, and so that's been an encouragement. That I just keep getting those little encouragements where they're like, "Yeah, vote for you." And really, the people, what they want to see is somebody who is going to make the hard stance. That no, you absolutely cannot have our guns. And
right.
You cannot impose any laws over us that are going to hurt our rights. And that is the authority of the sheriff, because all power and authority is inherent in we the people, and we delegate them out. And the sheriff is the direct reflection of that power and authority in the county, and is put there so that we can keep our rights intact, because the legislation is not God. They can make a law, but if it's unconstitutional, if it's against our Constitution, then it's null and void. And that is the job of the sheriff. It's actually the job of every citizen of America, that we are entitled, and we're qualified, and we're morally obliged as well. If you obey a law that is comes against your rights, you're basically you're challenged to let go of what you stand for, and and that means you would have to let go of all that you care about, to go down that route. And
Right.
I don't know that there's that many Americans that are willing to do that. There's a lot of good people in this country. We really are going to
Yes.
keep our country. And what they're looking for in the government offices right now are people that are set to do just that, uphold their rights. And that's in every government position,
Yes.
That's
100%.
yeah.
All right, Ryan. Well, we're coming up on time. I want to play your video. I love this video. It's my favorite that you have out there on YouTube. But if we could go ahead and play that, and then we can wrap after.
Yeah. Awesome.
I'm Joe Kent, running for Congress in the Washington's 3rd Congressional District, and I will always support and defend our right to bear arms. These are tools of war. Our forefathers fought a revolution against a tyrannical government and ensured that we could keep these weapons to keep a tyrannical government off our back. I support the Second Amendment as written and will always fight to uphold our Second Amendment rights.
My name is Hannah Joy. I'm running for Legislative District 17, Position 1 here in Washington State. And our Second Amendment rights are not up for negotiation nor liberal distortion. I will stand for your rights to bear arms no matter what. Please vote for me in August.
Our forefathers had real resolve. And they stated in the Declaration of Independence, we pledge our lives, we pledge our fortunes, and we pledge our sacred honor. That was the resolve that founded this country. And that is the resolve that will keep this country. The rights of the individual to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed upon. I will uphold the Second Amendment. That is a line that will not be crossed. My name is Ryan Cook. I'm running for sheriff for Skamania County. Vote for me, and I will uphold your rights.
I love it. Did you forget to say who you were? And they were like, can you tell us who you are?
Exactly. They're like, nobody moved.
Like, wait, yeah, great message. No, that's awesome. I love that video. That is fantastic. And Joe Kent and Hannah Joy, amazing people. I love that you're aligned with them. And I love that you guys were out just doing it in that horrendous rain, because in the Northwest, you have to capitalize. You can't cancel for rain. So that's fantastic, Ryan. Ryan, where can people find you to support you?
As far as online?
Yeah, website.
Website is ryancookforsheriff.com.
Perfect.
And,
it's down there.
Yep. And then I also have Ryan Cook for Sheriff at gmail.com, and that will be for my email. You can find me on Facebook as well. And that's Ryan Cook for Sheriff on Facebook. And then you can also find videos on YouTube for Ryan Cook for Sheriff on YouTube. So
love it. There's some good ones out there. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being a guest on KSok Uncensored, and really glad that we are friends, and you're just a great guy, and I wish you the absolute best.
Yeah. I have one more thing. I really like Ray Reynolds for Sheriff for your county.
Yes.
That's the guy that I would say would do a good job. He would stand up when he's supposed to. He'd be a good guy for that job. So. And
that is and he's running for sheriff in Clark County, Washington, for those watching. Excellent. Yeah. I'm sure they've seen signs. Those three sheriffs, I'll tell you what, the three sheriff candidates, they have plastered Vancouver, Washington with signs. So I'm sure people that live out there have seen those. But yes, I've been hearing great things, and we had Ray on about a month ago, and and got some really positive feedback. So I thank you for that, Ryan.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Well, thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. My absolute pleasure. And I'm sure I'll see you at an event sooner or later. And you have a wonderful evening. And thank you again for taking time out to be on KSok Uncensored. And for everyone watching, thank you for watching. We always have great folks on here who are constitutionally driven. And please come back every Thursday at 5 p.m. and you'll see another great guest. But As you guys know, I think Ryan would be absolutely stellar in the position of sheriff for Skamania County. I have officially endorsed him, and it's all over my social media. But if you live in that county, please check him out. And for those watching, have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you next Thursday.
Well, hello guys, it's the Elsa Kurt Show. I'm your host, Elsa Kurt, and today I have a really great guest on. We're going to be talking about, some of the things that are going on today. There's quite a lot going on, so it's going to be a really great conversation. Her name is Lisette Carter, and she's going to be coming up right after this.
A few years ago, my dad and my brother were teasing me about how little I knew about the United States. They asked me, is the United States a democracy or a republic? Obvio, it's a democracy. As they laughed at me, I thought, wait a minute, do I really know the difference? As embarrassing as that was, it drove me to dive deep into getting to know the foundations of the United States. It drove me to study and research the original intent of the Constitution, to learn an unfiltered version of U.S. history, to understand how politics and government operate, and to discover the dangers of socialism. Burying myself into the fundamentals of this nation reminded me of softball practices with my dad. We would train in the rain at night in 100% summer humidity, and anytime my game was off, he would take me right back to the fundamentals. If I lost focus, he'd dump water over my head and say, break time is over. I've come across many Americans like me who are off their game. They question what they were taught in school about history. With all I learned, I wanted to create a digestible resource for the average American to learn or even spruce up their knowledge about the very country we live in. The Rookie American Guidebook and podcast will help Americans get back to the fundamentals of true U.S. history, government, and politics. You'll also learn how to make informed decisions about your communities, representatives, and your nation. Break time's over.
All right. So as promised, I have Lisette Carter on today. She's pretty amazing. And I shouldn't say this right after I said she's pretty amazing, but we have some similarities here. We're both wives. We're both moms. We're both podcasters and authors. So I'm really fascinated by the lane that you're in. So if you could give us a little bit of your background.
Well, I live in central Massachusetts. I've been here for about 12 years. I'm a mom, as you said. I have a 6-year-old daughter, and I have 3 stepdaughters that are much older. They're 19, 20, 20. And I have a lot. I'm doing a lot. I am an author. I'm a podcaster. I've written 3 books. Obviously can't hold a candle to you, Elsa. Someone says, when Juan told me, wow, this girl has written over 20 books. I'm like, I'm nobody.
It's my ADD.
So no, I mean, it's the fruit of your work. And, I have written a book on Christian-based books based on one on pregnancy, one on marriage, and another on covering the nation, really true U.S. history, government, and politics. And initially, it didn't really start out that way. I have an athletic background. I went to school to play softball, really. I didn't really go to study. I went to school in Puerto Rico. And God called me out of that. I moved to the States. I was born here in Massachusetts, went back, moved back to the States, to Boston specifically. And there I began to have a hunger for entrepreneurship. I began to have a hunger for learning history, and I had no idea why. And then I met my husband, moved out to Central Mass, And from then on, I decided to write books. Was an intentional. The first one was really just filling a need. It was called Rookie Mommy, as an ode to my softball, baseball days. The second one is Rookie Wifey, which is about relationships, and really the original intent for marriage. And because I have a Christian background, my goal was to really stick it to the devil, because I understand that the devil's goal is to get rid of marriages, destroy families, and really destroy the nation. And so with my third book, as I prayed on, what my third book would be, God revealed to me that I needed to start a podcast called The Rookie American. And then also have a book following that. And here I am today.
That's such a great title for your podcast. I love that so much. It's brilliant.
Thank you.
Yeah, that is quite a journey, and I love how you reference it, that it was really a calling for you from God and just pointing you in the right direction. And and I have to be honest, I was not raised religious, and we were not. I was brought up Catholic, but in name only. Really, we never did it, and it wasn't until adulthood that I really started to find a place of comfortability with religion, because it was unfamiliar to me. So I really always love listening to someone who's really strong in their faith, who really knows what they're talking about and understands the Bible and all of those things. Like I just want to be a sponge and learn, really. Now, I know that doesn't represent everyone. Do you get a lot of resistance, a lot of backlash for being so vocally religious?
I actually get a lot of resistance from my fellow Christians, to be honest. I mean, I told God, I said, if you give me a platform to speak in Boston during the pandemic, I will spread the gospel for you, and I will help people get to heaven, because I started to see a lack of pastors stand up in any of these rallies. They were gone. And so, when I would give a speech on history, or, the original, Massachusetts was the OG of freedom, and I would tie in education. And then at the end, I would give people an invitation to accept Jesus. That I feel like was pressed upon my heart by God. And not a lot of rallies wanted that, and even specifically Christian rallies that were happening up here in Massachusetts, where I would tell them beforehand, hey, listen, I'm going to be speaking. If you'd like me to speak, I'd like to give the opportunity for people to accept Christ. And the people that were accepting towards it were non-believers, because they understood that there was something missing in the nation, that there was a hole that needed to be filled. And most Christians were like, no, we're not doing that. We don't want to bring religion into it. We want to just kind of keep everything the same. Whereas, this nation was built upon religious freedom. If it wasn't for Christians, we wouldn't have the nation that we have today. Christianity is actually the most tolerant of all of the religions out there. I mean, I can't go to Afghanistan and say that I'm Christian. It doesn't, I can't do that in China. And so, but here in America, you have the freedom to worship whatever you want to worship. And that was paved by Christians.
Yeah, those are really, really great points. And, I'm wondering, and I don't know the answer, and I'm hoping you know the answer. Do you think that the resistance is based out of fear of backlash, that people have just kind of lost their backbone and are afraid to stand up for their convictions because of the aggressiveness of the left? Or do you think we've gotten to a point where it's apathy, where they just don't care enough?
I believe 100% that it is fear. Fear is, in the Bible, it is definitely a tool that the devil uses to numb Christians and to numb people, really. And in the Bible, it says fear is actually a spirit. And so when Christians come out and they say, hey, we're not going to be talking about Jesus, we want everybody to come together. That is a socialist tactic. Socialism has been secretly infiltrated into the United States, specifically in seminary schools, and they have made Christianity a socialist religion. to the point where, they're saying, hey, to each their own. I don't want, if they want to remove God out of schools, to each their own, they can do that. And we have seen a decline in the morality of this nation the moment that they started to do that. In the 1600s, when public school was first created in Massachusetts, the reason why they wanted to create public schools was to teach kids how to read the Bible, not because they wanted to keep the same religion throughout the nation, but because they wanted to prevent tyrannical laws long term. And they knew that if you kept children illiterate, which is what the devil wanted, that you would have socialist laws in the nation. And it was called the Old Deluder Satan Act in Massachusetts at the time. And so you can see the decline of the morality of the nation because of that. And yes, I do believe some Christians, they have become lukewarm. And the Bible is very specific about what happens when you're lukewarm. God will spew you out of the mouth if you're not hot or cold. And at this time, if I go tomorrow, I don't want God to say to me, how come you didn't tell them? And I don't want to be the one saying, well, I was afraid of my government. I was afraid of what people would say. I don't want to be that person.
I love that. I love your strength and conviction and your heart behind that. I'm just trying to picture somebody, I'm just trying to fathom somebody trying from an opposing viewpoint, trying to come at you because you are fact loaded. You have a whole database of information. I mean, you have truly done your homework in every aspect. I'm actually curious, what made you get so interested in that aspect of history that you are so knowledgeable? Is that in like your family? Do you have historians in your family that have that background?
Not at all.
No,
My
it's just a
a lot of
calling.
my family, they're on the left.
Really?
They're all on the left. Yeah, I was raised Catholic, just like you. I've always been kind of like the black sheep of my family, where if I asked, well, why do we need to learn algebra? Do you guys use that? And they would be like, no. And I'm like, well, why would I listen to you? And I feel like God was always with me, always asking questions. And he would always say to me, ask questions, even when I was young. And because I asked a lot of questions and nobody could give me answers, I didn't give respect to where respect was due. And
Mm.
I felt in my heart, it just became a hunger probably about 6-7 years ago, just to study history. I loved it. I loved reading the autobiography of Ronald Reagan. I loved reading about Ben Carson. I loved reading about socialism, and at the heart of socialism, what was the original intent of that? Because these things get repeated throughout history. And if people don't understand their history, and if why are they taking history out of public schools? I wanted to know what was in history that was so threatening to the next generation. Why were they trying to keep the next generation from that?
Yeah, absolutely. And they're such important questions and points to bring up because people are so numb and blind to what's happening, to what's really going on. And that agenda, and you touched on it before, that this is something that's been going on for a very, very long time. And it's been right underneath our noses and we didn't see it. And now here we are at this, what really does feel like a spiritual war is what's going on right now, I think, in the world, in this country. And there are still so many people who don't see it, who think that we're being ridiculous, that we're, conspiracy theorists, that we're crazy. But all the evidence is there. They are trying to erase and rewrite history over and over again. Tell me some of the things that you are seeing going on that are playing out right now that you think bringing people to faith would help and change. It's kind of a broad question, so.
Well, for one, the stance on abortion, which was the latest one, I think that if many people understand that life is something that is breathed by God, and that it's a biblical issue, the first instance that you see in the Bible of a baby having life is when Jesus's cousin leaped in the womb of his aunt. And when he saw, or when he knew that his cousin was in this is like a terrible, I'm totally butchering this, but when there's an instance in the Bible when the baby leaped because he knew baby Jesus was being was in the womb. And so just like little things like that in scriptures, like I knew you before I formed you in the womb. There are eternal consequences for turning your back on life and for choosing death when it is something that is God ordained. Who are we, even in rape, who are we to say that we should get rid of that life, because that is something that has been brought by God. There are many people trying to have children right now that can't for many different reasons, and it's just a matter of prioritizing, okay, what can we do as believers to let people know God loves you and there's a purpose for your life. You weren't just a clump of cells, you weren't just an amoeba that
Right.
they teach us in science, that has no purpose. And I believe that when you teach people there's a specific purpose for their life, God has a will for your life. So does the devil. A lot of people blame God for what the devil is responsible for, many Christians especially. And so, when you tell people God wants good for you, he loves you, there's a reason why you're here today. It's not to be depressed in a corner. It's not to be ignorant of what's going on. It's for that you to have life and life more abundantly. And there's a specific path for you at this point. And showing them the love of God, I believe the initial showing of that will really turn their stances on these issues that are happening today.
Mm-hmm. One of the most common things that non-believers will say, or people, not even just non-believers, people of maybe little faith will say, and I'm sure you've heard it 1,000 times over, is if there's a God, why does he let bad things happen to good people? What's the answer to that? Is there an answer to, I know there's an answer to that. What would be the answer to that?
So God allows, we live in the devil's kingdom on earth. That is what happened when God told Satan, because initially he was an angel, and God put him on earth and said, this is your domain. So God knows of everything that's going on, because this is the devil's realm. The Bible is specific that God is good and he is good all the time. And in John 10:10, there's one scripture that really sums up the essence of the Bible. And it's, the devil came to steal, kill, and destroy, but Jesus came to bring life and life more abundantly. It's all in one scripture. And so when the bad things happen to people, they immediately say, this is God permitted this. Yes, he permitted it, but it's not his will. It's not his will for you to have death in your family. It's not his will for you to have cancer. That's not God's doing. It's the devil's doing. And I think that message has been lost in Christianity. It's a fighting message. It's a mentality switch where if I know the devil tried, and this has happened when I wrote my marriage book, there was an attack on my marriage like no other. And I had to realize where that fight was coming from. It was coming from the devil. It wasn't coming from God to teach me a lesson. That doesn't happen, because we have free will. How would God know that I'm going to lean into him more to be stronger? Or I could choose to be a crackhead after that. That's what
Right.
free will is. So, when you learn that God has a will for your life, but so does the devil, there's a huge mindset shift in battle. Like, let's battle the devil. Let's battle this anxiety. Let's get rid of this depression, because those are enemy tools that the enemy uses. So all of the bad that happens on earth, yes, God permits it, but it is not his will. It's permitted because this is Satan's kingdom.
And we were given free will. That was a choice that we made, right? We chose free will, and that means that we can choose which path we go down. But I always felt like God will always put the path in front of you, but you have to choose to take it. Is that right?
I believe so. I believe he gives everybody a glimpse of this is the right way, and if you choose not to accept it, then that's your choice.
I love that. And it's baffling to me. I have to be honest. It's baffling to me when people turn away from that, because for nothing else at all, the reassurance of that, I think is one of the most comforting things that you could ever find. So to turn away from that, to resist that is actually bizarre to me. Because you would think, just as a human being, you would want goodness and light and peace in your life, and, and guidance through your most difficult times, and that knowledge that, there is a presence there for you that's rooting for you. And I think that's so powerful. Which kind of leads me to, tell me a little bit about Rookie Revival Ministries, another name I love. Tell me what you do with that.
So Rookie Revival is a side ministry that I have. Just as I had mentioned before, I had asked God, listen, if you give me a platform to speak at any of the rallies, I'll do an altar call. I'll bring my own Bibles. And I want to teach people, just like the old Deluder Satan Act started public school to teach kids the Bible. I want to teach people how to read the Bible, because I find that a lot of Americans have Bibles. They just don't know how to read them, or they just don't read them, period. And so I like to think of Bible as an acronym, basic instructions before leaving Earth. And so I wanted to make sure that I got Bibles in the hands of people that gave their lives to Christ. And so the first time that I did that, it was at the Boston State House. There was a freedom rally there. I spoke on the history of Massachusetts, and then I did an invitation to accept Jesus. And I had only brought 20 Bibles with me. That's all the money that I had to give for Bibles. And I brought a suitcase, and after I gave that invitation, everybody came at me, and there were about 1,000 people that put up their hands, which was, I just asked God for one, just give me one person to spread the gospel to. There were about 2,000 people there, about 1,000 people put up their hands. I said, I only have 20 Bibles, guys. I don't have a lot. And so they came to me, and literally they started throwing money at me. And what's interesting is the first person to ask to give me money was a lesbian. And she was like, we need this. And they were by the end of the night, I had $700 for Bibles. So
that's amazing.
And a whole list of people that needed Bibles as well. So from then on, I just kind of rolled it into a ministry and said, hey, listen, I want to have something concrete where we can distribute Bibles if, people give me money for Bibles. And I also have a class where I have on a bookmark in the Bible on how to read it, how it was written, where to start, how to pray, just like the very basics of, of becoming a Christian.
That's amazing. So tell me, I'm curious, what has been the biggest challenge with all this? Was it the podcasting? Was it the books? Was it getting the message across? What's been the most challenging part of all of this?
The most challenging is definitely has been the persecution from family. The podcast was very simple. I mean, you can YouTube anything and learn how to do anything. So, the podcast was simple. The writing was simple. Obviously, publishing is always a pain in the neck. Maybe for me, maybe not for you right now, but for me, it was. All of that has been pretty seamless. What did get under my skin was the persecution from my family, and because Puerto Rico, they only have one kind of media out there, and it's left-wing media. They don't have anything else. So when I was out there for the majority of 2020, I noticed that all of their media, there wasn't one independent media outlet, right-wing, nothing. And when I decided to start my podcast, it was there when God put it upon my heart, when he said, go now. And I encountered a lot of resistance from my family, mostly because of how I felt about the pandemic. I refused to wear a mask here. I refused to put one on my daughter. I made sure I found a good school for her that was a homeschool based, love America, love Jesus kind of feel, where I never had to worry about her getting a jab or a mask. I worked really hard for that. Even if people called the cops on me here for not wearing a mask, I didn't care. And I think that really did upset a lot of people that were close to me, to the point where they wouldn't see me. They chose not to see us. And that, a lot of people can say, you know what, that just comes with the territory. You just take it. But I'm going to be honest, that was a real blow to me and to my family.
Yeah, I would imagine so easily. I've had friends and family members who have stepped away, or I've had to step away from them because they couldn't agree to disagree, and they couldn't find that middle ground where they felt like, okay, well, we feel differently about this, so we'll either not talk about it or we'll dance around it, or any of these things. And that is sad, because these are people that you know and love and that you believed up until that point truly loved you and cared for you and your best interests, and that's hurtful. Yeah, there's no way around that. You can stand strong in your beliefs and your convictions, but it doesn't make it hurt any less, for sure. And it's sad for us, really, right, too, to see people living in fear. Like, their existence is fear-based, and that's heartbreaking to watch, because you know how unnecessary it is. So I'm sorry you had to experience that, but I'm getting to know you a little bit here, and I see your strength and your earnestness and your conviction. So I know you're navigating that all as best as possible.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh, of course. Absolutely. Now tell everyone where they can find you, everything about you, where they can follow your ministries, all the good stuff.
Everything is located on rookierevival.com. You can find me on social media at thelisettecarter.com as well, where I release information regularly. It is shadow banned, so just go to rookierevival.com and subscribe, just to make sure that we are all connected all the time.
Outstanding. And your books, are they also through the website? Can they get them on Amazon, any other places? I don't want to send them away from your website.
Yeah, just get everything right on the website. I'm trying to minimize the spotlight on Amazon right now, but everything is right there on the website.
Outstanding. I did go visit your website. It's a beautiful website, very easy to navigate. As somebody with website person and constantly on the computer, I know people care about that. That's important, to be able to navigate these things easily. And it's a beautiful site. So well done.
Thank you.
And when your podcast, when do you air? What's your cycle for that?
I'm in talks with that right now, I believe within the next week or so.
Outstanding. Okay. Terrific. I love it. Lisette Carter, the Rookie Revival Ministries author, mom, wife, the whole works. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. It was great talking with you.
Thank you, Elsa.
All right, guys, this has been the Elsa Kurt Show. That was Lisette Carter. Go follow her and check out her website, and we will see you in the next episode. Take care.